Hi, I'm Angie. Today I'm going to talk to you about fibromyalgia and pooping. Yes, I said and pooping. Such a personal subject, but it's necessary to know that there's a connection. What is the connection? The connection is the brain. A person that suffers from fibromyalgia and from irritable bowel syndrome and from a lot of these other disorders that actually come together, those things are triggered by the central nervous system or the brain. It doesn't just start from what hurts, it doesn't just start from your tummy cramping, it starts from the brain. You might want to know what starts it all? Why is it a central nervous system problem? Why does it start from the brain? Well, because fibromyalgia and irritable bowel syndrome start from a common thing called trauma, emotional trauma. Typically, almost all the time, there is emotional trauma involved. They thought at one point that it was all physical, but now they're starting to realize that there is something to it that is in the etiology or the start or the history of both of those things. And it makes sense. Now, if you think back, you might remember what it was that got you frightened to that point where you started to have a panic response, a fight or flight response. And if you think back, you might realize that's when some of these other symptoms started. That was the trigger. So, what can you do about it? Realizing that those are the causes or the triggers that started these syndromes might help you to actually control your thoughts, let go of some of the things in the past that you didn't know that your brain and your body were hanging on to. Those things can really make a difference in your symptoms today. So, what happens when you have uh, fibromyalgia, for those that don't know, and what happens when you have irritable bowel syndrome? When you have fibromyalgia, you have flares. You have flares where you feel achy all over. You're getting up in the morning feels worse than if you stayed up and you worked for 48 hours straight doing something strenuous. You might have just fatigue where you just don't feel good and you can barely function. And those are typical flare, or sometimes those things go beyond when you're having a flare, but they're definitely heightened when you have a flare. What happens when you have irritable bowel syndrome, also known as IBS? Well, you can have diarrhea, you can have constipation, and it's very typical to flip flop between the two. When you have problems and issues with your tummy due to IBS, it's not just that you're going to the bathroom or you're not going to the bathroom. When you are going, it is a very stressful, painful, crampy time. You might feel like you're getting ready to have a baby, but you don't get the reward. So I'm laughing, but those of you that are experiencing these things, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that had no idea that they were connected, well, it's probably a good thing that you have that information now, because now you'll know that you're not by yourself and things are starting to make sense. Some other time, I'll talk about some other associated things with fibromyalgia, but you know what? There are things to do. And so find those things out, because now you have the start. You can start the process of putting some practices to good use, such as watching your diet, calming your thoughts, getting rid of the past, and so forth. So it was very good being able to explain these things to you. Catch me on a future fibro vlog, or find me in order to paint along, because we do acrylic painting for those that suffer with fibromyalgia or any other chronic pain. We use painting to help us cope. All right. Thank you.